of a Jesus girl. Jesus girl. Hey, it's the diary of a Jesus girl. Like the wings of the spirit of the Lord, just a swirl. You are in it, but you know you're not a part of this world. And for the swine, you should never cast your pearl. Yes, it's just the diary of a Jesus girl. The diary of a Jesus girl.
Welcome to the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast, where we discuss real-life issues of the committed Christian woman. This podcast will inspire you to love Jesus and impact lives like Jesus. And now it's time for your host, Crystal Day, award-winning author, speaker, and Christian coach.
Okay, so welcome guys to another episode of the Diary of a Jesus Girl. And I'm excited because I have my first official guest of the podcast, Jessica. I'm so excited about, when I thought about the podcast, her name was actually one of the very first names I put down. Because I just love it. There's just something about Jessica that you're just going to love. I love her, and I believe that you will love her. So welcome, Jess. Welcome.
Wow, thank you. I mean, what an introduction. I don't think I've ever had anyone introduce me like that. Thank you, Crystal, for just honoring me. I honor you, and I love what you're doing. I absolutely love your platform, and I love your growth, and I'm just excited for you, and I'm excited that you would actually have me as one of your first guests on the Jesus Girl podcast.
Thank you. So I just want to share a little of her official bio before, just kind of share. So Jessica, please help me with the pronunciation.
Chinyelu.
Chinyelu, and the married name?
Yes, Annie Bowie. Bowie.
Yes. So I just stick to Jess because this is just such a unique name. But she's a Nigerian American wife, boss, mother, and lifestyle content creator that is based in Dallas, Texas. And she describes herself as a lover of family, business, beauty, faith, fitness. She has had a great platform on YouTube with her ministry, Woman of Purpose. She has been on, some top platforms where she has partnered with brands like Herbal Essence, Reebok, Walmart. She was featured on ABC, Cosmo News, Cosmopolitan, Brides, and we can't wait to talk about the Brides part, right? She has just been, when you watch her platform, you are just wowed by the simplicity, but yet still powerful content that she shares. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that my audience will also be blessed.
Yes.
How is the family?
Oh, the family is doing great. My husband, he's at work right now in Jedediah. I call him Jedi. He's at school. He goes to Montessori. When I tell people he's at school, they're like, wait, he's not even 2 yet. So he goes to school, and I'm like, well, they have a good curriculum, but they're great. They're incredible. I could go on and on about my family.
Yes, I remember all of it, but I want to start by the conversation. All of my guests, I want to start our conversation by the conversion story. So, we're Jesus girls, and of course we'll have some Jesus men on, but I like to hear people conversion stories. I remember seeing a testimony years ago where you were a party girl. I remember, you were working in the clubs and stuff like that. And then now, just a woman of God, a woman after God's heart, a Jesus girl. Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Oh, man. Woo. I will tell you. So I remember one evening where I was coming home from the club, and when I tell you, the club was my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Literally, I was a club girl. I loved clubbing. It was my lifestyle every day of the week. And I was a club promoter. I smoked marijuana, but it was just, I was extremely high on life, and I loved it. But the thing about it is, is I wasn't happy. Inside I was dying. I did not want to hear anything that God had to say to me. And I feel like I just had a wake up call. This was back in 2009. And I remember when I came home that night, I laid down in my bed, crashed for about 2 hours. And then I woke up and I looked at the clock and it was 4:44 a.m. And I'm hearing this voice, and the voice is like saying, Jessica, Jessica, Jessica. And that voice told me, like, hey, look, you've got two ways to go. You can continue to do things my way, or you can lead yourself down a path of destruction if you continue down your own path or using your own plans. And I remember thinking to myself, like, is this God? Because I'm just trying to figure out, like, I know that I had a really good time tonight. I had quite a few drinks and I smoked some marijuana. So am I paranoid? Like, what is going on? And it kind of freaked me out at first. But I just began to see this beautiful picture in my mind. And it was this woman walking across this stage. She had on this red dress. It was outlined in white and this bone straight lace front wig. Like, I mean, it was so long. And she was walking so confidently and boldly. She had courage and she was speaking about faith and miracles. And I was so in awe of this woman. It was like something I'd never seen or witnessed before. And then as I looked a little bit closer and dig deeper, I realized that that woman who was walking across that stage was me. And tears just began to roll down my eyes because I had this moment of, wow, God, you've been trying to get me to see that there is more. Like, there's so much more to life than what I am living right now.
Wow.
And when he was telling me, look, you can do things your way, or you can go my way. He was like, I'm trying to upgrade you. I'm trying to give you blessings. You're blocking yourself from receiving the more that I have for you. And so that's when really the vision of Woman of Purpose came to life, because he just started to show me. I began typing down a PowerPoint presentation and everything that he was telling me. And he was showing me influencing these amazing women. And there were even men too. Like, honestly, I feel like the story is still unfolding. But long story short, I take this proposal. I honestly just put it back in a Google document and in my PowerPoint presentation. And it wasn't until about 3 years later, so that was 2009, when I got that vision. And when God really just showed me or let me just put it like this, it was my first real encounter with God where I truly heard the audible voice of God. And then 3 years later, I remember all of these women. I started doing Christian open mic nights. And as I was doing those Christian open mic nights, women who knew my journey back whenever I was a club girl, they were just like, oh, okay, Jessica, she's become this Jesus girl. And everyone was like, okay, it doesn't really make sense, because how can she go from Jesus to club girl to now Jesus girl? And it was such a beautiful thing, because these women just started coming to me and asking me, well, you're doing so great with hosting your events. How about you put together something for women? Now, I'll be honest, I did not want to do that because of what I had experienced with women working as a club promoter and hosting events in the entertainment world. And it was one call that I received from a woman named Linda. And she called me and she was just in tears and just like, you know what, Jess, I'm seeing what you're doing. And I know that God has breathed life into you. And you have the ability, this gift to bring women together or bring people together, create these unique encounters for people. And I was just kind of like, okay, girl, I'm not trying to hear anything that you're trying to say, because you're Miss Perfect. And I cannot fathom this perfect Jesus girl that I'm looking at that's coming to me, who's the club girl, who doesn't know anything about the word of God, how to really put on a Bible study, but you're asking me to do that. Like, and I even threw it back at her and said, why don't you do it? And she was like, no, I really believe that this is what you should be doing. And she cried and cried. And I was like, okay. So although multiple people were asking me to do it, it was her that really pushed me to actually doing it. So I invited like 12 women to my mom's house, because at the time I was living with my mom. And those 8, out of the 12 women that I invited, there were about 8 women that showed up. And it was such a powerful evening. All we did was write letters to God. I mean, which, let me tell you, there's power in writing letters to God, and there's power in writing things down. I'm a strong believer in that. I write down things in what I like to call my miracle book. So I write down miracles all the time. And although those miracles have not happened, and it's kind of like with what the vision that God was giving me about Woman of Purpose, that night in 2009, I wrote down everything. It may not have manifested until later, but it did manifest. And that evening, when all of us, we gathered together in my mother's home, it was so phenomenal to just witness what God was doing, or what he had been planning all this time. And it was so powerful. The letters that we wrote to God, we all read those letters. And that same Linda, she goes, "Oh my God, what if this turns into a conference?" And that's when the light bulb moment went off for me, that, oh, wow. In 2009, 3 years ago, when God showed me this vision, this is what he was talking about. That moment is now. This is actually coming to life. And I began getting to work. And I'll tell you, like, I really honestly had no major plan. I was planning for 50 people to attend my first conference. I'll tell you, the first day that we put out tickets, we sold over 100. And then by the time we got to the actual event, my very first conference, we had over like 650 people in attendance. It blew me 650. Away. Wow. It blew me away. Like, my first conference, and I was like, God's hand was in everything. He worked out a miracle for me. So that's really how Woman of Purpose was birthed, how I got from being this club girl to Jesus girl to Woman of Purpose. And now here I am, just seeing like, oh, wow, God, that woman that you were showing me back in 2009, I'm still working to become her, because there were men and women as I was speaking on that stage. So Woman of Purpose was literally, honestly, just the beginning stages of where God was taking me, and where he's continuing to take me. I tell myself every day, and I write down in my miracle book, I am becoming my greatest self. And he gave me a revelation the other day as well. And he was like, look, you're not just becoming your greatest self. You are your greatest self. You are walking in your greatest self. And I want you to see that. And it's just mind blowing to me. And I wake up every morning and I do that. And I say, thank you, God. I am becoming my greatest self. Thank you, God. I am becoming my greatest self. Thank you, God. I am becoming my greatest self. And I walk in that daily. Even when the challenges come, like I've had challenges with Woman of Purpose. I've had challenges with so many things that I've done, but I have hope. I hope daily. And I remember, I go back to that miracle book and I think about like, oh, okay, these are the miracles that God has performed in my life. This is what he has promised me. This is what he has done for me. So I know he has greater. I know that he has greater, and I'm going to continue to live a miraculous life. I'm living a life of miracles daily.
Wow, like I'm here. I'm like, okay, I'm here writing. I'm writing. I'm like, okay, all right. Wow, wow. Oh, I could sit and listen to you all day. But no. Here's So something I wanted to go back to something that you said. Question: did you grow up in church, or did you have any exposure to Christ like that, or what was that like before?
Yeah, so I grew up in church. I mean, who didn't? If you black, you grew up in church. You went to church on Sunday. If you grew up Pentecostal like me, or Church of God in Christ, then yeah, you were at church on Sundays. You were there for Sunday school at like 9:00 in the morning, and then you were there until about 2:00 p.m. In the afternoon, and then y'all might have had an evening service on Sunday. Then Wednesday Bible study. I was a part of all of that. My mom was a praise and worship leader for a big mega church here in Dallas, Texas. And I sang on the worship team. I was a church girl, but I was a church girl when I was younger that did not know God. And I will tell you, like, I'm so sick and tired of people playing church. I actually got to a place in my life where I was tired of playing church and that's really, going back to when I had my first encounter with God and I heard the audible voice, it was so moving to me because I had never heard that voice before. Yet I grew up in church. I knew how to pray, but I don't think I was praying the right prayers. I knew there was a God, but I didn't know how real God was. And I don't think I actually got that until 2009. God became real to me in 2009, and he's even more real now. I believe that your relationship with God, it's supposed to go to higher levels. You go from one level to the next, and your relationship is not supposed to remain the same. You can never be too familiar. Like in your marriage, I know we're going to talk about marriage, but you grow in your marriage, you evolve in your marriage. Therefore, your relationship with God should also evolve. So who God was whenever I was younger or when I was in church and I really didn't have a relationship with him, that's how I saw him one way. Then in 2009, he gave me a deeper revelation of who he is and revealed much more to me about who he is and what he had for me. And now he's taken that to an even higher and greater place. And so I'm really like, God, take me to the highest. Take me to the highest. But yeah, no, to answer your question, I did grow up in church, but there was no real relationship.
Okay. Yeah, because I wanted persons to know, if there's anyone that's listening that felt like, okay, where are they and they can relate. So I thank you for that. You mentioned though that, that night when you had that encounter and God just showing you, who you could become in him. What would you say, like, what would you say that made you say, no, this is it? Because I'm sure persons will get these encounters sometimes or get these, hear these things, oh, God has a great plan, but there's something that they don't want to let go of or something. What would you say made that that was the turning point that said, this is it?
Who? He showed me something that I never seen or imagined for myself. And
Wow.
I think a lot of times we limit ourselves in our minds. I can't remember, but there's a study that shows the number of how we have so many negative thoughts that fill our minds daily. And I think at that period of time in my life, I had so much negative energy surrounding me. My mind was filled with so much doubt, with a lot of fear, no hope. And because of that, I was unable to receive. I was incapable of receiving the more or the greater that God had for me. So God really had to wake me up. And I tell people all the time, I was like, man, I thought it was the craziest thing that I was under the influence. I was high on marijuana when I heard this audible voice, but he literally woke me up in the middle of the night, or basically at like 4:44 a.m. to say, wake up, I need you to see this. So even though think about like, it's like if you have a dream. Have you ever had a dream and you just felt like you were actually there in that moment, living that dream? I felt like I could touch the woman that he was showing me. And because I had never seen myself in that light, I loved what I saw. I was like, wow, God. And that's why I was crying, because I was like, I've never allowed my mind. I've never allowed my imagination. I've never allowed my spirit. I've allowed my circumstances to keep me from seeing that there is more, to seeing greater, seeing with the eyes of my spirit, seeing with my actual physical mind. I was unable to see it. And because we don't allow our minds to see the goodness, the greatness of God, that's why we miss it. That's how some people miss it. So think about when he showed me that vision, because he told me I had two ways to go. Think about if I'd seen that, And then I said, that's not gonna happen for me. Or, let me go back to my negativity. Let me keep up with just doing what I'm doing. Because he said, your way is gonna lead you down a path of destruction. I was like, okay, if I got these two choices, I'm going with the latter. I'm going with the greater. Because I know how I feel. I was getting tired of the club scene. I was going to the clubs, I would get high, I would drink, and I'd be around all these people. But even though there was laughter and there was music and there was dancing, I was living in sin. I was not happy. I had this false happiness, and it appeared that I was happy, but really I was dying inside. I was in complete and total darkness. So the moment that I got just a tad bit of light and he showed me that bit of light, I was like, I'm definitely getting myself out of the darkness that I'm in. You have to understand, like, I was in a relationship with someone at the time that I considered my lover, my friend, but he was a married man. How in the world could that bring any type of light or any type of greatness? Nothing great can come from that. So I knew that God's way was better. I knew that was the aha moment for me. That's why I will never forget that encounter. You can never forget encounters. I don't even pray. These days, I'm like, God, I don't want an experience with you. I don't want to go to church and feel good and have praise and worship and get goosebumps. I'm not looking for that. I am daily seeking encounters with God. And he gives them. Me and God, we walk on the beach. We talk. I watch the sunset and the sunrise. And he speaks about the miracles that are happening in my life and that are going to continue to happen. That's what it did for me. That was the aha moment for me. That's what I saw. That was the light that I saw. That light has carried me. It has kept me full. It has kept me determined to never go back to that woman that I used to be.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Jess, I know you're a busy woman, but it sounds like we will eventually need a part two because you touch on so many things. And, for anybody that's listening, there's something that she said that's so powerful. She did not meet God in church. She met him when she was in that, like, what would be considered a pit, and sometimes we have put God in our box, we can only experience it, God, at this time and this time. But she was under the influence, smoking, drinking, all of these things coming from a party. And God, like as the scripture says in Psalm, that, there's no way where you can spread your bed that God will not come for you. Even the pits of hell, he will get you. So I really thank you for that. And, just sharing that part about being a married man, but we won't get into that part today. But I want to just jump in to believing for Boaz. Yes. So this episode is very intentional because I wanted it to come out in February because we just celebrated Valentine's Day. And many of us single women have some married folks that are like, yeah, you have some of us single like play hating, and some of us are like so happy with our single journey. But a few years ago, Jess actually did a challenge called Believing for Boaz, a 5 day, right? It was a 5-day challenge. Yes. Yeah. So I'd sent it to a ton of my friends that, we did it. And another thing that I remember, when she did her engagement shoot, and she had done her husband was pinning her and her wig fell off, and that went viral because, come on, like, as women, that happened. There's no, like, it's just me, the photographer, and my husband would know. But this is why I felt like, Jess is definitely needed for Diary of a Jesus Girl, because again, this podcast is, to be real, is a transparent conversation that we're having, and she has definitely shared, just have been very transparent, and that for me was so inspiring. That post that she made when her wig fell off, it just showed her vulnerability. It showed her willingness to just say, hey, I don't have it together. Yeah, I'm cute and I'm fabulous, but hey, I don't wake up cute and fabulous every day. So talk to us about the believing, what inspired the believing for Boaz, and just share a little bit about, just that journey from I was in a married relationship with a married man to know, just marrying the man of your dreams.
Yeah. Wonderful question. And I'm sure you probably won't even believe this, but when you go through being in a relationship with a married man, you have to understand where my mindset was. I had been through been in so many bad relationships where I was mistreated, I was abused, taken advantage of. And I mean, those are situations where all the red flags were there, but I chose to stay in those situations. But I was at the place of, you know what, marriage is not for me. And I felt that way from a very young age, simply because, my mom, she had been married 3 times. My parents divorced at a very young age. So I never really had a beautiful picture of marriage, people think about the Cosbys and the Huxtables, and, people see these great love relationships that they saw on TV, but I never got to experience that as a child. And so because of that, I felt like, okay, well, it's okay to just be in any kind of relationship and be treated anyhow. And I settled for being a mistress because I did not like the feeling of being rejected. So I put myself in a situation where, you know what, I know that he'll never be mine. So I'll just settle for what we have. And I remember one evening, and I'm probably going to be super, super real, but I remember one evening I was with him and he told me that he did not want to go home. And I don't know what it was. Like, he didn't want to go home to his wife. And I don't know what it was that just clicked in me, but something went off. And I was like, oh my God, this is not the life that I'm supposed to be living. And after that evening, I drove home. We were at a hotel and I left the hotel, drove home, and I wrote down in my journal everything that I wanted God to forgive me of this horrible thing that I was doing and this horrible lifestyle that I was living. And I asked God for forgiveness, but then I also began to write down what I desired and what I did not desire in a spouse. Because ultimately, I really deep down wanted to be with someone who could love me and love me well. And I knew that if I could just get out of this mindset of lack, or get out of this mindset of that I am not worthy of true love, and that there's not an incredible or good man out there, then I would be okay. Like, I just had to get out of that mindset. And so I wrote it down. I prayed about it. I kind of just left it. There were other good guys that came, but I will say, after I started to write those things down, the type of men that I dated afterwards, it changed. So I was very observant. I asked questions. I was really mindful about how they treated me and how I treated them. I actually went back and apologized to some guys that I had dated, just to say, hey, things have changed in my life. And my now husband, was actually someone that I had met during my clubbing days. And I remember I feel like God protected us from actually getting into anything serious, because I would have ruined that relationship. And I remember when I started to write down, okay, God, I need to get out of this sin. I need to get out of this life. I actually wrote down that, God, I think that this man is my husband. I told my dad, I believe that I met my husband, and he was like, just give it some time. Give it some time. you need to take your time. He asked how long we had known each other. And I was like, oh, like 6 months. And he's like, no, take your time. So it's interesting to me, after getting out of this bad relationship, writing down what I wanted and what I did not want in a spouse, beginning to see this unique relationship form between my husband and I. So we met in 2010 or 2009 going into 2010. I did not get serious with him. I actually stopped answering his phone calls after 6 months. And then 2 years later, we ran into each other at church, and I spotted him in the audience, and I was sharing my testimony. So everyone in Dallas thought that I had moved because I stopped going out. I was always in church. And sure enough, I run into this man that I had written down in my journal, and I forgotten about it, that I think he could be my husband. And so all this to say, I created Believing for Boaz, the challenge, because I wanted people to get a better understanding of where your mindset needs to be if you desire to be a wife, or what you desire to have in a spouse. Like I said earlier in the podcast, is I strongly believe in writing things down, and it's like a miracle manifested for me in God sending me my husband. Sending me my husband and showing me who he was, like at the time when I was a club girl, and then like seeing me transform. My husband tells me all the time, he's like, I'm living your transformation. I've witnessed your transformation. Like, I've seen it all. And I'm so grateful for that. But I would tell any woman, any single woman, get a clear vision of what you desire in your spouse. Be specific with God. I was with my girlfriend the other day, and she was telling me how, and this is going to sound so crazy, she said, I want my husband to love the hell out of me. And it's crazy because her now fiance, he loves her so well, so well. Excuse me. So I would just say, Believing for Boaz was really all about creating the vision of what you desire and eventually that manifesting for you. That's exactly what happened for me. It's exactly what happened for me.
Oh, well. So, Lord God is so intentional with this interview, because it was last week I met with a relationship coach. Because she said, Crystal, I want to do some session with you. I'm like, okay, all right. So I've shared years ago about me being the other woman. So I did a blog that I was with somebody he wasn't married, but he had his girlfriend. And, I've always kind of shared. So I felt like when you were talking, I was like, oh my God, somebody get it. I didn't realize until I was having a conversation with her that it was stemmed from feeling like I don't want to be rejected. So I was protecting myself from, rejection by settling for men that had other partners. And, she had said that in our session, and I came home thinking about it. And then you came to confirm it, because you're saying, you had to accept that. And that's something I will definitely do that you said that you did, was writing, just writing down what is it that you desire. And what you came out for me in what you said is that you have to have faith to believe that this is possible for you.
Mm.
And a lot of times I don't know if many of us, including myself, like we had that faith. Like, that God is going to eventually, bring you a spouse, but it's almost like you're not believing that it's possible. No, it's not. Is it even going to be somebody that, that you, as you said, oxable, that kind of course, not perfect, but, that fulfilling relationship. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Welcome. You are welcome. But let me also just add this, because one of the things that I had to realize, and people were like, oh my God, are you going to bring back your, Believing for Boaz, or, your 21 days of prayer for your husband? And I I will bring it back out, but I felt like I got this. I know I got this revelation from God that was like, look, I want you to tell these women that before they start asking for a spouse, I'm going to need them to work on becoming what they praying about. So what I mean by that is really embracing where you are right now. I have some phenomenal single friends that are doing the absolute most incredible things in life. And one of my girlfriends, and she's actually one of my best friends, like we've been friends for over 20 years. She's in her 30s. She has no kids. She has a pretty darn successful career, makes six figures, and she is in the process of actually working on a startup. And she said there was a guy that she dated, and he told her, he said, I don't know what it is. You're just so happy. Like, I've never met someone that is so happy. Like, you don't want a man in your life. You don't want somebody to come and take care of you. And he's honestly like not even husband material. But she said, yeah, I'm happy. Like, why wouldn't I be? She said, I'm not going to sit around and not be happy in life because I don't have a husband or I don't have a man. She said, I'm just going to use this time to live my absolute greatest life in this season. I'm going to make the most of it. And whomever I marry is going to be the most phenomenal husband ever. She said, if I don't get married until I'm 50, she said, I am 100% okay with that. And I was like, oh, girl, I felt that in my spirit because I don't think enough single women are content and okay with the season of singleness. As a married woman, let me tell you, oh my God, I have had days where I'm like, oh God, if I could have just been single a little bit longer. And that's a truth. That is a reality because when you now have a child, when you now have the responsibility of being a wife, that's why there's a Bible verse in the Bible where Paul, he talks about like, hey, you know what? If you decide to get married, that's fine. But let me tell you, enjoy where you are as a single human being. There's a lot more responsibilities that come with being a wife and that come with being a mother. And so you have to make sure that you embrace every bit of the season of singleness. So that way you have like, don't, let me just put it like this. Don't wait until you get married to start trying to get your finances right. Don't wait until some man comes or, you know, a man comes or a husband comes so you can start living your dreams. Live your dreams now. Make those dreams happen now. Let those miracles manifest in your life now. Don't wait, because I know these days, this day and age, we have a lot of people shacking up and having sex before marriage. And I'm not saying that it's okay, but what I am saying is that if you're going to do it, don't wait until you get pregnant by someone or you have a child with someone until you start trying to get your life together. No, do it now. Anything that you desire in life, if you want to buy a house, if you want to, invest your money, if you want to start a trust fund for your future babies that are coming, if you want to freeze your eggs, do that now. Don't be thinking about, oh, I'm just waiting for the husband to come. I'm doomed. Singleness is such a curse. No. Be happy where you are now. And I think if there's anything that I would tell my younger self, I probably could have prevented from being in a lot of bad relationships if I had been content in my singleness. We take ourselves through a lot of hurt, through a lot of pain, through a lot of traumatic experiences and relationships because we are not content with where we are. You have women who will clearly go into marriages that they know they ain't supposed to be in simply because they just want to be married. That is not the life you want to live. And I'm praying for anybody that is listening to this podcast, any woman that is listening to this podcast and in a relationship or heavily considering marriage to somebody that they know they ain't got no business being married to. I'm praying that God closes that door immediately because I had a mentor who told me there are two things that will change your life or the course of your future. It is the God that you choose to worship and the person that you choose to spend the rest of your life with. So whomever your partner is, whomever you choose to walk down that aisle with, it's going to change a lot, regardless if you guys go your separate ways, you get divorced. If you have kids with that person, you stuck with them forever. If you marry that person, there's always going to be some type of tie to them. So be very, very specific with God about what you want. Don't settle. Enjoy your singleness and where you are now, because you ain't trying to have nobody mess up what God had for you and your blessings. No. I could go on and on about that. But anyway.
Thank you for sharing that. But just here's a question, because I'm sure there are single women that will say, "Oh, every time we hear a married," because we hear it, that we attend these single conferences and stuff, and we hear the married women say, "Oh, I wish I could, sometimes I wish I could get back single, enjoy the season." It's almost like they start to get annoyed with what you have said, which is almost like, as it's needed, you keep saying it, our persons keep saying it, but we are just still not doing it. But what would you say to that person that feels like, okay, I have the job together, I have everything together, but I have this desire. You understand? I have it all together, but I still have this desire. What would you say to that person?
Obviously, the desire is a good desire. I don't think that the desire is bad. Continue to have that desire in your heart, but don't let the desire become an obsession. I think that is the problem now with our culture and society, is that marriage, relationships, it has become an obsession. And anything that becomes an obsession or an addiction is never good, because you got to think about God. He is a jealous God, and he does not want anything to come before him. He does not want anything to come before his plans and the plans that he has for you. So keep the desire, pray about the desire, give the desire to God, and trust that he is going to make a way for you and produce a miracle for you. And this miracle husband is going to manifest in your life. But again, don't make it an obsession. Write down what you desire, write down what you want, pray about it, think about it. But again, don't make it an obsession. I cannot say that enough, and that's with anything in life. That's not just with a spouse or, your desire for marriage. I think, you shouldn't make your career an obsession. You shouldn't make money an obsession. You should not make, social media an obsession. Anything that you make an obsession, honestly, it just takes the place of God. It does. It really does.
Amen. Thank you. So as we are winding down to wrap up, we just come off a little bit on the relationship, and I want you to kind of probably share a little bit. This is twofold. One, I know a lot of women that I know that listen, have a desire to either go into ministry or start some kind of ministry. Just in a few minutes, just kind of tell us a little bit about your journey, operating this international ministry. And I want to just plug in a story here, because how I found Jessica, everybody knows I'm a big Eda Lindsay fan, right? And I was, of course, on YouTube listening to trying to find sermons that Eda did, and Woman of Purpose. That was the first one that you did, right? Yeah. So she was a speaker at the first Woman of Purpose, and that's how I actually found Jess. So, I was so blessed by the sermon. I started to follow the ministry on Instagram and stuff. And then there's one day when I was struggling with God just brought this story back to me, or this memory back to me. I remember I was struggling a lot with my calling, and I sent an email to Woman of Purpose to pray for me, and to really, I think I'd asked a question regarding ministry. And the person that responded, they said, I will pray for you and stuff. And they said that they forwarded it to our founders. Apparently it was an admin person. And the person forwarded it to Jessica. And she did not just email. She said, I want to talk to you. I want to pray with you, because I really believe that the Lord has a big plan for your life. And this was, again, I think this was probably about 2004 or 2005, I don't remember. no, sorry, 2014, 2015. It was one of those years, and she called me. It was a Sunday evening. She called me and she prayed with me. And thank you. I didn't remember that's how we connected, but the Holy Spirit brought it to my memory. And I want to say thank you, because that was really a challenging season. And I think this is why I want to ask a question regarding ministry and calling, because you said initially that when the lady said it to you, when Linda said it to you that you should do this, you're like, no, Linda, you should. I don't know enough Bible. I don't know. And I feel like, this is something that a lot of women of faith struggle with. So that's the first part of the question. Talk to us a little bit about ministry. And then the second part would be share with us probably a disappointment or a challenge that you had that you really, that you needed God to show up for. So that like a little testimony regarding that.
So I'm so happy that you shared how we connected and that I called you. People think I'm crazy because I meet strangers on the internet and I welcome them into my home, but that's always been me. I've met so many people through that very first Woman of Purpose conference and that live stream, that bootleg live stream that we did, because I think that there was like all kinds of noise in the background, but people were so impacted by that first conference. And it's honestly really because it was like so many miracles happened for that conference. And I remember meeting another young woman, and she would pay her tithes to Woman of Purpose. And I was like, whoa, hold up. She's in the military. And she said, I don't have a home church. And I've been watching all of your YouTube videos. And I just feel like Woman of Purpose is basically my church. And with moments like that, I remember I told her I would send her stuff, and I said, if you ever in Dallas, I would love to host you in my home. And I did. Until this day, we're still very good friends. I think when it comes to ministry, everything that we do is ministry. Ministry, when people hear that word ministry, they allow their minds only just go to church. And I tell people ministry is everywhere my feet walk. Everything I touch is ministry. Everything I say is ministry. Everything I do is ministry. Therefore, I have to go in with the mindset of whenever I do something, I'm doing it because I know God wants me to make the greatest impact or infinite impact. And so anyone out there that is doing ministry, which ministry could be through your work, your 9 to 5 that you go to. Ministry could be what you post on social media. Ministry could be, the events that you host. Whatever it is, there's definitely going to be challenges along the way. One of my biggest challenges was, like you mentioned, when Linda was like, girl, I believe that this is for you. I believe that, you need to host this event. You need to do this. And remember, God had clearly shown me the vision, but I did not believe. I believed and I was hoping, and I was like, okay, is this really for me? I was still questioning God about this ability or this gift or this talent that he told me, like, look, this is for you. I'm trying to bless you with it. But because you don't see it, because you don't fully believe it, because you don't fully understand it, you're incapable of receiving the more that I have for you. And I think that's probably been my biggest challenge in ministry, is being incapable of receiving more. I think that's a lot of people's challenges. And those challenges are because we think about the mistakes of our past. We think about, our fears. We get comfortable where we are. And even with shifting, oh my God, do you know how crazy it is? Like, just to shift because, again, like I said, you go to new levels. So I think that's the other challenge, is being okay when God says move and when he says shift, to be comfortable and okay with the move and trusting that God knows what he's doing. Like, he's telling you to move because, again, he has something greater. So that has been my challenge with ministry. But I'm grateful because every day, like I said, I am walking in my greatest self. I'm telling myself that I am becoming my greatest self. So I'm like, okay, God, I'm not going to miss it. When you tell me to shift, I'm a shift. When you tell me to go, I'm a go. When you tell me to move, I'm going to move, and not be afraid of the unseen. Because so many of us are afraid of what we do not see. But what is faith? What is hope? What is that little bit of faith that he says, if you could just have faith as small as a mustard seed, that faith as small as a mustard seed can move mountains, So
Amen.
that's ministry and my challenges.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. I close. Just tell us a little bit now about you have mentioned a shift. We don't see. I know that there's not a lot that is going on with Woman of Purpose. I can't believe, because like Woman of Purpose conference has been on my vision board like for years, but I know it's coming back one day, so I can fulfill that vision.
Let me tell you, you better believe Woman of Purpose is coming back. But I really wanted to, I know what God was wanting me to do is he's like, look, I need you to use all of your gifts. I need you to bring everything to the table. And so for so long, I was comfortable with doing just Woman of Purpose. And he's like, there's some other things that I want you to do. There's some other things that you have done with Woman of Purpose that you can use to teach other people. And I want you to teach other women to go out and host these conferences, get these conferences funded, and not just women, but men also. Educate them, help them to avoid all of the mistakes that you made. And that's how I came up with the Sponsorship Lady. And the Sponsorship Lady is basically where I teach people how to obtain corporate sponsorships or increase their sponsorship revenue in a systematic and reliable way. It's pretty awesome. People always ask me how in the world I've been able to host these conferences that cost so much money, and they're multi-day events or multi-day conferences. And it's because God has really given me a gift to go out and secure money to fund my wildest dreams, or things beyond my imagination. And so I'm just grateful that I now am able to educate others on how to do the same. So that's what I'm working on. You can go follow at the Sponsorship Lady. I have a free resource that's out right now, the corporate sponsorship proposal template, and I think you guys will love it. But this is a time where I'm really building solid relationships and making connections that are really going to help make Woman of Purpose even bigger than what it already is.
Amen. Thank you. So we'll ensure that we put that link, who you can find Jess. You should go and listen to her YouTube channel. I can tell you that you will be blessed by the interviews that she have done. A lot of the persons, Courtney Sanders, Vivian Jokatadi, Rachel, like quite a few of them, are now almost in my network because I go and I connect with them, and it's because of Jess and her obedience. And Jess, as we leave, what is it that you would want to say to any Jesus girl, at the various persons, probably at the different aspect? Probably they are entrepreneurs, probably they are, probably you have persons that are not saved that will be listening to the podcast also. What is it that you feel right now on your heart that you believe that God would want you to share?
Ooh. So I am big on the words for this decade, and the word for 2020. And I am really big on not really always waiting for this word, because I feel like when we think about the new year, when we think about this next decade or this decade that we're in right now, everyone is trying to collect different words. But I'm very big on, God, what's for me? What do you have for me personally? And he said, I want you to go out and make infinite impact. And that infinite impact, regardless if it's one thing or multiple things, go out and do the absolute best. Give it your best shot. Don't walk in fear. Don't walk in your comfort zone. Do the absolute most with all of your gifts and talents, and watch it begin to make room for you. I'm telling you, don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait for somebody to tell you that this is what you should be doing, because you already know what you should be doing. You know what you carry inside of you. Use the gifts, use the talents, bring all of that to the table. And I assure you that God is going to seriously give you the life where you're living exceedingly and abundantly and experiencing daily miracles. So my word for anybody would be infinite impact in this decade, infinite impact in your marriages, infinite impact in your singles and season, infinite impact in your finances, infinite impact in your homes, infinite impact in your connections, the divine connections that you make. That is what I'm believing for, not just myself, but for anybody that's listening and for anybody who wants to tap into that. That's what I would say. That is exactly what I would share with anybody listening.
Thank you. This has been an amazing, like, I can't wait to go and listen to it, and just can't wait to re-listen this episode. I know without a shadow of a doubt, I am blessed. My heart is blessed. I know persons will be blessed. And I want to say thank you, Jessica. Thank you.
So welcome. You are so welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for following my journey since, God, honestly, really the very beginning stages of where God was taking me. I'm so grateful that you've been following the journey thus far and that we've been able to stay in contact with one another. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, God bless you. I hope that you guys will review this part, leave a review. I want you to go and follow Jess, go and listen to YouTube, download that. If you're into key hosting events, I am definitely going to download that corporate sponsorship, right? We want to tap the word of God says, he the wealth of the wicked is for the righteous. So we want to tap into that. Not saying that everybody in corporate is wicked, okay? I'm just saying that we want to just tap into the finances, and of course that word that just says we will be walking in infinite impact. And remember who a Jesus girl is? A Jesus girl is a woman that loves Jesus and wants to impact like Jesus. So thank you for joining this show. God bless you.
Jesus girl. Jesus girl. Hey, it's the diary of a Jesus girl.